I'm curious how you advise coaches to think through when they're talking to a client, recognizing that that client is a red flag, what to look for, and how to say no graciously.
It's a great question. I mean, first of all, I'm a big fan of like we all have inner guidance, right? So I'm a fan of, I know when I'm talking to someone and those flags are going off. Now, I may not always know why, right? Because like sometimes I'm like, huh, I'm getting an odd feeling and I'm not sure. And I just need to keep asking questions, right? Well, tell me more. And sometimes the disconnect for me, and this may be true for some coaches and not for others, for me, if someone is not really interested in any internal work. So in other words, my background is from the University of Santa Monica, right? So, I didn't go there to become a coach, and I ended up becoming a coach. And that work is really about inner and outer, right? It's inner and outer. It's all connected. So for me, sometimes a flag is somebody just wants goal line, right? I want to make more money. I want a house. I want a marriage. I've had that. And I'm like, and they're not really willing to consider like, well, maybe there's stuff inside that's getting in the way, right? Some people, and I think you wrote recently, right? You were like, sometimes someone just wants to make more money, right? Didn't you write about that
Sure,
recently?
yes. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And I really liked it. And I think that's true. And sometimes the reason they're not making more money is there's something going on internally, right? And there are people who are like, I'm not that interested in that. So that's one of my flags. Now, for another coach, it might be they share they have depression, right? Or, things that feel a little scary for a coach, right? And I'm all for a coach being like, I don't feel equipped when someone's dealing with big stuff. I know plenty of coaches, including myself, who took people's money and later realized they weren't a great choice.
Sure. In a way, that's the worst. It's better to not get the client than to get the wrong client.
Oh,
It It makes me think about, I saw an interview with Marshall Goldsmith years ago, and he was basically like the whole game is client selection. That's what I learned at the beginning. You get the right clients, they get results. You publish the case study or they refer folks to you. You get the wrong clients and it sinks your energy. So I think one of the things you're speaking to as well, it sounds like, is coachability. Because sometimes it's not just they don't have the self-awareness, but continually asking them to identify what's getting in the way and maybe how they're getting in the way. And there's not a willingness to look at that. It's always there's not enough time or this person isn't allowing
totally.
this to happen.
Totally. I mean, I have a guy I'm coaching right now. So I coach individuals and then I have the school and I do other stuff. And I have a guy who's mostly externally referenced, right? And he's just like, we have to fix my schedule and we have to fix. And I'm continually pointing him internally and he's doing it. But even now I'm like, he's not really my typical client. And it's been interesting, right? Now, would I say he was a bad choice? I would not. But I would say, huh, I maybe I could have slowed it down a little bit more.
Yeah, tell me more about slowing it down because that feels key when you're not sure exactly what's going on or you're not sure if the client's fit. How do you actually slow down in the conversations?
I mean, I'll have more conversations. So for me and, the coaches that I work with, I'm like, have another conversation. Have four. Like don't don't get too fast because you may regret it. And look, I think having clients that are not the best fit make us better coaches, right? So I don't look at any of this, just so you know, as like it's great when you've ended up coaching someone and you're like, oops, I didn't acknowledge there were flags and now I get to learn from this experience. I mean, I think it's all good. Do I want to constantly be saying yes to people that are not a fit? No. But I think I mean, Steve Chandler has been my coach for 18 plus years. And when I had people that I was like, ooh, this was not a great choice, he's like, get ready for learning.
Sure. So that can be an opportunity there once you're in the situation. That makes sense.
Totally. So for me, it's all slowing down, like, let's keep talking. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, but wait, how much do you, what? And I'm like, we can talk about that. And it's still premature.
That makes sense. I found the same thing. When I came up, a lot of the programs were around like doing one call closes and things like that. There was obviously the Prosperous Coach method, which is more time, but then there was the online marketing crew that was like, let's be efficient, one call close, overcoming objections. And what I found is at least having two calls. I typically don't go beyond two calls, but one call to sort of diagnose and audit, and the other call to kind of come up with a game plan and talk about logistics. I found that that space was helpful for clients to take the pressure off so they know on the first call that we're not necessarily having to make a big decision, but also it's helpful for me because
Yeah.
sometimes for me, if I'm in sales mode, and there is a mode you get in, at least in my experience, when you know it's an enrollment conversation, um, it helps me to step back from that and say, okay, but how do I really feel about this client? So it helps me to slow down in between the calls as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think slowing down is really, really important. And I think, I know, you know, it's like, especially when we've been at this, and we're already earning decent money, right? It's like maybe it's like you said, like if I'm in the 5 to 25K a month scenario, right? It can easily fall into rinse and repeat, right? Where you're just like, okay, and then it's like, ooh, maybe I'm not pausing. Maybe there's more room for me to pause.
Hmm. I'm curious, to what extent do you see coaches who are maybe leveling up their clientele? So, for example, maybe they worked with people who were beginners in their career. Now they're working with more seasoned folks, but they're still attracting some of the older type of client. And so maybe they want to start saying no to some of those engagements because they want to work with, the good to great clients, but they're still attracting some of the clients who are struggling a bit more. I think that's a tough thing because that speaks to a comfort zone that they were in and leads that are coming. How do you support people, or how do you think about leveling up your clientele and maybe saying no to the people that you used to work with but you don't want to anymore?
Well, it's definitely uncomfortable, or it certainly can be, right? It's like, ooh, I've been in this sweet spot, right, with this set of people. And now, whether it's for fees, whatever it is, it's like, and it is uncomfortable, right? And so some of that is like, maybe I need to get a couple at the level I want to create more ease in saying no, right? Like I might need to enroll a few of the newer, higher level people to create more ease in me declining. So that's one thing, right? I don't want to jump to a higher level and say goodbye to everyone until I know I can actually make the jump, right?
Sure, sure.
And then the other thing is I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to say, you know what, I think our work, I don't think I'm right for you. And I have this other coach who I'm connected to who I think is fantastic for you. So I want coaches to hand off people they do not want, right? Like we want to get people served. I think it's a lot easier to say no when I can connect them with someone else, to be like, you know what, it's been great talking to you. I'm not sure I'm the right coach, but I have someone I think would be fantastic. I find that helps a lot.
I think that's key. And then you can stay in that trusted advisor role. You're sending them to you feel is a better place. And I think that has integrity as well. Um, okay, so once you work with those higher level clients and I'm hearing the jump can be gradual. It doesn't have to be like I'm flipping a switch. I'll never let myself take on these clients and I got to figure out how to attract these other clients. As folks are working with maybe higher level clients, although there's some judgment in that. I get that every client you could have a great engagement with, but I found for myself in working with clients that imposter syndrome is huge for coaches. And I think that sometimes it's more elevated when you're working with higher level clients in terms of, okay, my fees are going up. How do I make sure that I'm giving them value? Uh, how do you think about that in terms of the doubts that come up as a coach, and how do you work with that?
Yeah. First of all, I always think it's fabulous. I'm like, what a great place to be in that. Like, isn't it great that we're in a profession that when we up our game, a whole new level of self doubt comes up, right? Like, isn't it great that now, like, ooh, look how exciting. I once again feel like an imposter. I once again feel like I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, to me, that's like, oh, we're going to the next level. Of course it's gonna bring up stuff. And then I go, okay, so I always want to slow it down. I always want to be like, look, we know that those thoughts, right, are not the truth. We know that, right? Even if I'm feeling them, it's not the truth. However, um, I think it's really important when coaches go to the next level and they take their fees up a big notch. It's like, I really want a coach to slow down and be like, so what's different about me now? Right? Because when I become a coach who takes my practice to the next level, higher level clients, higher fees, I want to look at like, Am I the same coach I was? And if I ask a coach that, I'm like, are you a better coach than you were when you were coaching these other people? And they'll say, absolutely. And I say, okay. And then the other thing I'll say is, what have you done in the last 6 months to a year that has developed you more? And they'll say, well, I did this, I did Greg's program, I went, even personal things, right? It's like, I have a coach I'm coaching right now. Their son was just diagnosed with ADHD. It's a big deal, right? And I'm like, look, there's all the internal stuff, but I'm like, this is going to make you a better coach. It will make you a better coach. So everything we do brings us to the next level, right? So I see it as all like, well, this is great. And if I'm concerned, like, ooh, maybe I'm not at the level I need to be. I'm like, well, find someone who's going to help you, right? Find someone who's going to help you see that you have this inside of you.
Hmm. So that takes me kind of the next thing I was thinking about, which is because it's possible someone could feel like an imposter or raise their rates to the point where the value is out of whack, right? That's
Yeah.
theoretically possible. I mean, if you just tripled your prices as a new coach and didn't do anything else, maybe that is out of integrity in some way. But you and I have both seen also how people can use integrity and ethics as a way to not put themselves out there, to not raise their rate. So it can be tricky to fine tune that. What are some of the things that coaches can do to, I guess, quote unquote, justify the higher rates, or at least just have a sense of their own value being commensurate with what they're charging? I'm hearing like working with coaches, going through challenging life events. Is there anything else that, like, for example, you could say, like reviewing the session right after and thinking about one thing you could do better? Anything that comes up for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of like not only reviewing a session, I'm a big fan of like write down everything that you think worked. Write down everything you think didn't work. Like really be willing to run your own game film, right? And be like, all right, where was my opportunity there? It's like we have so much available to us now. There's so many books, there's so many videos, there's great coaches. It's like there are so many ways to learn how to like deepen something. If I think I didn't quite hit the mark, I'm like, how am I going to, who can I look at to go, oh, I want to see how they hit the mark, right? I want to watch something that makes me go, oh, I never thought of that. Right? There's so many great coaches who've done 8 million interviews that we can watch about coaching, actual coaching. Byron Katie, Steve Chandler, like, you know, all the people, right? So there's so much that we could go. If I just slow down and watch some people and take some notes and bring my questions, I'll find new things.
Hmm.
You will.
I like that. So watching other people's and also reviewing. I mean, do you suggest coaches actually review, a Zoom recording of a session that they did and see what went well, or is it more just replaying it in your head?
I think it's coach dependent, right? Because some coaches don't want to ever see themselves, and I respect that, right? I'm like, if they're like, you don't want to watch your video, all good. Now, most of us know though, like if I review a session in my mind, I know where there might have been something I could have handled differently. So I'm a fan of it has to happen right after. Now, look, I bring those to my coach. So when I go to meet with my coach, and I will be, I have two things going on with two clients. I am bringing them and I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure I'm hitting the mark here. What do you think? So I'm using people regularly to help me go, did I have a deeper opportunity? Or maybe I just could have asked a different question. But yes, so and if you're good with like watching yourself on your session, then do that because I think that's great too.
I think therapists seem, at least from the outside looking at the industry, have a better way of doing that in general than coaches of getting feedback, meeting with other colleagues and going around and saying, hey, I'm dealing with this one challenging client. What am I missing? So I really think that makes sense. Bringing it to your coach, reviewing. How do you think about the side of imposter syndrome that is maybe taking too much responsibility for the situation, the client? Because part of this is like, what's my responsibility here? And that can be hard to parse out, especially as folks are encouraged to speak to outcomes and speak to results in their marketing. I think some people feel on the hook for making
Yeah.
that happen. But of course, we're not the client. We can't directly make it happen.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I love this part of the conversation, just so you know.
Yeah.
because, are you okay if I say something that might be radical?
Please go for it.
We're not responsible for the results. We're not. Like, and I make that really clear. Like, no, no, I'm not responsible. You are responsible, client. And I'm going to help you, but you're going to do the work. And I think it's really important. Coaches get hooked in this all the time, right? It's like, no, no, no. Like, let's not promise things, right? Right. We can be like, look, I will give you everything I know about this. I will share everything I've got. I can't predict whether or not you're going to do the thing that you want. And I make that really clear. I'm like, in fact, don't ruin my track record, right? Like, don't ruin my track record if you think there's a potential that you won't do what we just talked about, right? So I want coaches to get really clear. We are not responsible for the results. I'm responsible for showing up at my best and giving you my best. And I'll do everything I can. But if you don't go do the thing,
Yeah. So the responsibility of the coach primarily is how they're showing up to sessions. That's where you see what the coach is responsible for.
and the coach is responsible for how they talk about it, right? Like, because I do think coaches can get hooked into not just promising but over promising, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's an error in the industry that is obviously, there's lots of people doing that, right? I mean, I have coaches, I'm sure you do, who end up in my world who were promised things
Yeah.
in their business,
Yeah.
and I'm the one like, yeah, there's no, like, no, that, I don't know how someone could promise that to you in that amount of time, right? So we as coaches need to be really clear, like, I'm not guaranteeing you anything. I think it's possible. I'll share where these 5 people did it, but I we're entering into a trust here. And I'm counting on you to use what I'm doing here with you.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the sales conversation too, because that's setting the context for what we're doing here. So when I look back at certain clients that have been challenging engagements for me, I can usually go back and say there was a part of the sales call where they were looking for some certainty. They were looking for someone to carry that responsibility. What do you think is possible in the 6 months? What, something like that. And I answered it in a way that either took on the results or gave them unrealistic expectations, and then you're done. That's
Right.
not fun after that. So,
Oh no, it's not fun at all. And I'm not a fan of things that are no fun, although it is part of the gig sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. So I like focusing on kind of the part the coach can control. It's like it sounds like you're saying, if you wake up at 2 a.m. and you're anxious about a client or your clients, or am I doing enough? Going back to, okay, am I doing those game tape reviews or just those diagnostics in my head? Am I bringing this to a coach, to a colleague? Am I showing up to sessions with the presence and the energy that I want? Going back to your role in the engagement, not looking at what's happening externally as much.
Yeah, and look, I'll make agreements, right? I'm a fan of a coach saying, "Hey, you want to create this? We can have an agreement. I'll give you everything I've got. I'm going to be thinking about you when we're not together. I might connect you with other resources, people, all the things." And we don't know.
Yeah.
There's no way to know. I mean, I used to think I knew. I used to be like, "Oh, I can tell if a coach or someone's going to like make some money in this business." And I found out very quickly I did not know.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can assess like what resources they have coming into the engagement can be helpful. If a coach comes to me, they have a 10,000 person email list that's very engaged. There's some things you can do pretty quickly to book some calls and get some clients, but I agree, it's not the easiest thing to predict what's going to happen.
No. And I used to think I could. My business partner, who is no longer with us, we would be like, "Oh, this person, they're going to be great." And we were like, "Whoops,
Yeah,
not so much."
yeah. There's your responsibility as the coach. There's the client's responsibility for doing the work. And you mentioned kind of making sure that that's clear in the sales conversation. I don't know what you're going to do. I think there's a third factor that people don't really like to talk about, which is like the world is not always predictable and doesn't go to plan. So actually, I could do what I want to do. You can do your part, and you could still not have the external results or the timeline you're hoping for, anticipating, because there's things out of both of our control.
That's right. especially in a world that occurs like it's unstable and all sorts of things are happening, right? It's like we don't know, we just don't know. Now, I'm a fan of like, and if this is what you love to do, whatever it is, what else are you going to do with your time? Like, you might as well make a go of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to the marketing side of this, we've talked about working with clients, we've talked about the enrollment conversation, but actually generating some of those calls and conversations with the right type of client. Where does that start in your mind? When you're working with a coach who said, I want to get more clients or I want to get more of this type of client, what are sort of the things that you ask and check on to see if they're doing what they need to be doing?
Yeah, well, you mentioned something I think that's really important, right? So, like, if a coach already has community, that's a very different situation than a coach who doesn't, right? A coach has a 10,000 person email list. They've built community. They've done some things, right? So there's a lot of potential there, right? So I'm first thing I'm going to do is find out, do you have community? Like, tell me about your world, right? And look, a coach who's already in the, 5K and up a month, they probably have something, I'm guessing, right? It's rare, even if they're only serving individual clients, they've created people who already see them as a trusted source of transformation. Now, sometimes people have exhausted their pond, right? If they don't have a huge pond, they've exhausted it. And then we start to go, all right, so it's time for you to expand your community. And we talk about different ways to do that. Now, in my world, I'm a fan of like, you already have served all these people. Why don't you do something for them and invite them and have them bring somebody, right? Whether that's a virtual event or some coaches love in person. I'm like, do a great in person event. We all need more of that. And say, bring one person, right? Like, so I'm a fan of um, slow, steady growth, right? Like, I'm like, for me, this business is intimate and it takes time and it's one person at a time, right? So I know there's lots of different thoughts on that, and that's just where I stand. I'm like, I'm not a coach who's like, let's have you, like most of the coaches in my world, they want a really robust coaching practice made up of individuals, groups, maybe they're doing retreats or events. They're not trying to scale up to how can I serve 100,000 people?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
kind of think that's a myth,
You kind of think that's what?
a myth.
Yeah. How to actually scale it up?
To huge levels.
Hmm.
Not medium to large, I get it.
Yeah. Why is that a myth?
Well, it's like it depends on what kind of coach you want to be, right? So first of all, most of the coaches I know who've attempted that route, who went the marketing route, the funnel route, it didn't go well, right? It just didn't go well. They ended up in debt. They ended up struggling. So I don't know. I mean, I know a few, and I don't even know them personally. I know there's coaches who've achieved it, but that's few and far between.
Yeah.
And they probably had to do a lot before that even looked like that.
Yeah. It's a lot of customer service, building a team, spending a lot of money,
Right.
sell something that doesn't cost a lot and requires a lot of people to be profitable. I love the way that you talk about community because oftentimes the word for that you hear online is like an audience, building an audience. I really think community is a much better way of looking at it, especially because there's coaches who, like for me, I built my business primarily through content. So I've actually used a lot of online marketing practices to build a business that's relatively intimate. But for other coaches I work with, they really build their business through connecting and referral partnerships, and they have a robust referral network and inviting people to dinners. And I think that's a great way to do it if that's what you enjoy is connecting with people. For
Sure.
that coach, they can't spend 10 hours writing a blog post alone. It's just they won't have any juice come from that.
That's right.
So I like that you talk about community. It sounds like one of the ways folks can expand their community if they've exhausted it is you're saying using their existing community or roster of past clients to then go one degree out. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I think that's one option, right? And like I love Greg, like you like to write, right? Am I
Yeah.
accurate?
Yeah.
I love to write, right? So to me, it's like, if find what you love to do, right? If you don't love to write, I always say to a coach, don't write. You don't need to. It's not a requirement. If you don't like social media, don't be on social media. I know plenty of
Yeah.
coaches who never have touched social media and they're making $500,000 and they're happy, really happy with their lives and their clients and all the things they do. So to me, it's dependent on what does the coach love and what are they good at, right? So it's like, great. If you like connecting and being with people, then you might want to do some events to grow your community or some gatherings of some kind. I know a coach, and I love this idea. They did these like dinners for 12 professional women in corporate, and they just kept offering them, and there would bring a friend, and they grew their business that way. And I'm a fan of blogs, and I'm a fan of like whatever you want to share, right? We have to find what do you, but you have to do something, right? Like, a lot of coaches are like, "Ugh," and I'm like, no, no, action is the way.
Yeah. We're so aligned on this. If you're not doing a marketing strategy you enjoy, you can't be consistent with it. You can never get good at it. And I feel like there's so much should around, well, I should be on social media or whatever it is. You're probably not going to stand out with the activities that feel like a should. In the same way, you're not going to keep running on a treadmill if that's not the form of exercise that, you
That's
enjoy
right.
doing. There's other ways to meet that need. it, for someone who's taking a more relational approach, so for me, I have kind of three archetypes. That would be like a connector archetype, someone who loves connecting. That's how they build their business. What's the role of a niche for that type of coach?
Yeah. I think it's a, I don't think it's necessary. I'm a fan of like, my niche happened pretty organically, right? It was like, I didn't go like, dun, da, da, da. I want to coach coaches. I don't think any coach who coaches coaches is like, yes, that is my lane. I just don't think, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I first started, I had a business partner. She passed away in 2015. She was my best friend, and she really wanted to serve women. She's like, I want to do groups for women, and I want you to do it with me. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. My guideline is what's fun, right? So I'm like, that sounds fun. I wanted to hang out with her, and we started doing groups for women, and we loved it, right? So that became a lane that we were in. But I don't think it's a requirement. I like variety. So I'm like, I like to do all sorts of stuff. So I think it really depends. If your background lends itself to a particular lane, I think it can be a way to get traction.
Yeah.
But like, I've had coaches who are like, I had a coach who was a hospice nurse, right? And then she became essentially like a death coach, right? Which is amazing.
Hmm.
And she served families and people at end of life. And I would joke with her. I was like, yeah, but that's a relatively small group of clients. Like, and then they die. So what are you gonna do?
The repeat clients are it's not great in that one.
It's a little hard. And I
Yeah.
said to her, and you have so many skills. Like you can serve so many people with beyond just this group. And she ended up expanding because, it's like as coaches, we have so much we can offer. It doesn't have to be like stay in a dedicated lane because that's the right way.
Hmm. Yeah, my experience has been that the more someone wants to use more scalable marketing strategies, blogging, YouTube, creating content to teach, the more a niche can be useful because you're competing against the whole internet of content.
That's
The
right.
more someone is going to build their business through dinners, a local community, connecting with referral partnerships, I think actually being a bit broader can be useful because you're dealing with a limited pool. So actually, when you niche down in that case, you're starting to get towards zero, potential clients in your community.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look and, I never thought, like, first of all, I didn't really think I would ever write the way I write, right? And share the way I share. And, right. I never thought create content. So to me, it's also like the arc of a coaching career can have all these phases, right? So it's like, I'm like, well, like finding your voice, whether that's content or not, right? Like it takes time. It just, and 5 years in, I would not have predicted any of this for
Hmm.
me.
Even 5 years in, you're saying you wouldn't think you'd be here.
No, and I never like writing a book. I'd be like, well, I'm not going to write a book. Michelle was the one who was going to write a book, right? I was like, I'm not, I mean, I would do my emails because we had to get people into our things, but I never thought that's my plan.
Hmm. How did Michelle pass away?
So she had a breast cancer diagnosis.
Okay. What was that experience? Because she was also your business partner. You said best friend and business partner. How did you go about continuing with the business after that?
Such a great question. So we were both being coached by Steve Chandler. So he would coach us individually and then together on our joint
Oh,
work.
cool.
Yeah, it was great. And it was hard, Greg. It was hard because we also taught at the University of Santa Monica. We helped develop a soul-centered professional coaching program. So we did that together, and then she got so sick she couldn't do it. So another USM grad who was also a successful coach led it with me with Steve. And when she died, I didn't want to do anything that was really group oriented for a while. Like all the things we did, I just was like, no, not right now. I just couldn't. I served my individual clients. People in my community knew, right? I wrote about what was happening with Michelle, right? So it wasn't a surprise to most people what was happening, and it just took a while. Like it took a year. Like I remember being on a session with Steve Chandler and being like, "But is it okay?" Like I and he said to me, "Carolyn, if the Beatles had gone away for a year, do you think anybody would have been like, I don't want to see you when you come back?" And I was like, well, I'm not the Beatles. And he said, I understand, but it's the same idea. And I was like, okay. So I just really gave myself space. Now I served my individual clients. I didn't have, I had a smaller group for coaches. It wasn't what I'm doing now. And all of it was, it worked, right? Like I was able to still make my living and I was able to give myself space and it was hard. It took a lot. We did almost everything together that was more group oriented. So I had to learn that, Steve would often say to us, the only thing better than both of you is one of you. And we were like, ah, ha, 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 ha. And then I was like, oh, she really took that seriously.
Hmm.
And then
What do
I
you
had,
think he meant by that?
well, he was always, I mean, Steve Chandler is a unique guy, right? And he loved the work we did together. He obviously helped us build it. And he always said, having one of you up front is even more powerful because it's like it's a lot to have two people in front of a room and it's a lot. He was always like, and he would that's how he rolled, right? He was like a one
Right.
guy in front of the room, right? So Michelle and I kind of broke his mold. We would be like, let's do stuff together. We actually tried to enroll clients to work with both of us, individual clients. And he was like, I don't think it's going to work. And we were like, it's going to work. And we had like two people hire us. And it was really hard to coach one person with the both of us.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's wild.
To me, the way I took it was like, if we're both doing an event, one of us doing a section is a great thing. Like we don't always have to do everything together.
Hmm. Yeah, so more permission to have that one person. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So when I started coaching, I had one of my first coaches sent me The Prosperous Coach, and I read that book. And I know a lot of coaches start off and that's their entry into the world. And obviously that was Steve and Rich Litvin. And then I don't know in depth that story, but Rich has his own brand. He's doing his thing. And then Steve, it sounds like you obviously working with him, and he sounds like he has some presence in coaching success school. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, so he's the senior faculty advisor and he teaches. So every one of my faculty members comes and does a day in the program. Steve Chandler has been there since it started and he has always come and done a live day. Now he's sort of semi-retired now. So last year he did his time a little bit differently. This year he's doing two full live days and he's doing something a little bit different at the school, which is fabulous because who doesn't want to be with Steve Chandler for two full days?
That's cool. I mean, the guy has staying power. He's not a young guy anymore. I mean, he's rolling. Um,
He's 80 years old and I will
he's
say
80.
this, he's as sharp as ever, and to me he's some of the things he's saying in terms of coaching about the profession are so valuable and so important.
It's cool. How, for folks who have read The Prosperous Coach, obviously it seems like some of that methodology has made its way into your how you do things in coaching successful. But do you teach that as a methodology? Are there places where you actually diverge from the original, version that was in the book? How do you think about the Prosperous Coach method at this point?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I would say that the things that are different that I do, because I'm different, right? My background is different than Steve's, I mean, my background, because of my education at the University of Santa Monica, it's like the principles and practices of spiritual psychology kind of go along with the prosperous coach. I'd say my approach is probably different is that I have encouraged and leaned on the art of inviting probably way more than Steve ever intended, right? Like and that's a really effective tool for newer coaches or for coaches who want to take their business up a notch, right? I want a higher level client. I'm going to be like, well, you already know higher level clients. Like, who are they, right? But learning how to write to them and how to invite them into a different kind of conversation that's a higher level, that's probably the prosperous coach in many ways was really about become such a good coach and give away so much that your entire business is referral. That's really in some ways what the prosperous coach was about. And I like new stuff, so I'm like, well, I don't really want my whole business to be referral based. I mean, some people coaches do, and I'm like, great. But I love looking out in the world and being like, you know what? I think that guy Greg is amazing. We've talked once or twice. I want to invite him. And I think there's a lot of room for that in this business if done well, because it's not often done well, and we're not like jumping out of our league too quickly.
Hmm. Well, I want to talk about how to do it well because I think that's terrifying for a lot of coaches to think about actually going out. There's some risk of rejection. It almost feels like dating in a way, like, "Oh, I'm going to go tell this person I'm interested in them, invite them in. Are they going to be offended that I even asked?" So I think
Right.
there's something comforting for a lot of coaches and marketers play on this, get a flow of leads inbound to you from
Totally.
whatever it is, content, ads, whatever it is. So tell me, how do you think about invitations? How is it done well? What do you see when it's done poorly?
Yeah. When it's done poorly, it's entirely about the coach, right? The coach is like, I do this and I've worked with this person and right? And I just, so in my school, we have a private coaching page where coaches are putting up drafts and communications all day long. And I look at them all day long. And I just looked at one and I was like, oh, no, no, no. Don't. Not no. Too much I. Like Steve Chandler, when he was coaching Michelle and I, we would send him emails. We'd be like, I'm gonna write to Greg. Here's my email. And Steve would write back and he'd say, all he would write, who is this about? And we'd be like, oh no. Oh no. And we would love it, right? Because we were like, oh, he nailed us, right? So it's like some of it is learning how do I write where I am centering you, Greg, in the communication in a way that feels really good. It feels really real, like not like an AI robot, like where my voice is genuine and that you feel like, wow, I just got this email from Carolyn. I can't believe she remembered that when we talked about it. And her email is so generous and real and like it's such a beautiful invitation that no matter what, even if you were like, it's not the right time for me, that you'd be like, I so appreciated this. I think we're so ingrained to attempt to sell. I think we are. Like
Yeah.
we're so oriented to be like, I have to tell Greg like the way like, about my coaching. And no, you don't. You don't have to tell Greg about your coaching at all.
Yeah.
At all. In fact, it's kind of not going to go well if you keep talking about it.
I sent out a newsletter this morning, and one quote I love that was in it, I think from Alan Cohen, is less explanation is more convincing than more explanation.
100%. And I think, look, I never thought this when I started, but I had no idea how much coaching, the profession of coaching, it really requires us to be good communicators.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know that that's really talked about in an open way that like, oh, I'm going to have to like not just talk to people. I'm going to have to email them and I'm going to have to text them. I'm going to have interactions with them. And I cannot tell you how much there's like a combo. There's either wild tentativeness or there's wild, like overconfident, ego centered. It's the whole gamut. And it's just because we don't know and we don't know how we appear.
I've never thought about it in quite that way, but I really like thinking about the profession of coaching being one of you're just an excellent world-class communicator in sessions, out of sessions, and that's a big part of the value that you're providing.
That's right.
So, what else if we have number one kind of like cheat sheet to invites, making invites effectively, focus on others, not yourself. What else comes to mind for you that separates a good invitation?
A good invitation has really thoughtful acknowledgement to the recipient. So what I mean by that is that, like, if I'm going to write to you, Greg, I'm going to be like, Greg, first of all, I can't believe, like, who like posts about other coaches' work. Like, I can't believe you did that. Like, that is really, that's remarkable. And I still kind of can't get over it. And because you did that, I want to give you something, right? I want to give you time, right? So I'm going to look for something like, why am I writing to this person? I want them to know I'm writing to them because they stand out to me in some way, right? And I want to be specific. Acknowledgement is specific. It's not like you're so great, right? I mean, and that's learning, right? Like coaches do this all the time, right? They're like, and I'm like, yeah, but can we be more specific? Like, they're great. Why? Like, what makes that person worth your invitation? Now, this is work, right? Now, so for people who, are like, I want to scale up, writing really personal, intimate, well done invitations takes practice, right? It's like you don't learn to do those. Like if I could do it now, like I could do 20 in a day if I had to. But in the beginning, I mean, people are like, this is taking me like 45 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, new skill set.
New skill set.
Okay, so focusing on them, specific acknowledgement. Anything else that comes to mind for
Yes.
invitations?
Yeah. It's like if I'm going to offer you time, if my invitation is to have some time with me, I want there to be permission to say no. And it has to be specific. So it's like, I want you to be like, oh my God, she said yes or no. Like, that's so cool. Nobody does that. Nobody gives permission to say no. And I can't tell you how many coaches, there's stuff I receive. And I'm like, this feels like I'm going to be held hostage and I don't have freedom to say no. It's like one of the greatest things we can do in this profession is say, might not be for you. And that's totally okay. Saying no is just fine because we're putting the elephant right out front. You can say no to me. I don't need you.
Hmm. Is that something that typically would go towards the end of an invite, saying if this doesn't resonate with you or doesn't make sense, feel free to say no? Is that
Yeah.
what you're doing? Okay.
Yeah, I'd be like, Greg, totally fine with me to say no. Either way, doesn't matter. Let me know. And I wanted to make sure you knew how I felt about you.
Hmm. I like that. I like that ending. Do you find that there's certain channels, text, in person, call, email, that tend to be more effective for a direct invite?
I used to be kind of people used to make jokes about me because I was really I've had a lot of strong thinking about professional self, social self. And like, for a long time, I was like, do not text. Like, why are you texting? Because text is first of all, it's so immediate, right? Like we get a text and our lizard amygdala is like, must answer, right? And I'm like, texting is for my husband and my daughter, not for like a potential client. And I don't see it that way anymore. So I get it, right? Things have changed. So to me, it really is dependent on you as the coach. Are you someone who feels more at ease picking up a phone and calling you? Because I might get you live. Can you handle that? Right? Or am I someone who likes email? Or I know people who invite people by video.
Sure.
So they will make a video, and then they will send it to someone.
Yeah. So you think it comes down to what puts the coach at ease, the person sending the invite?
Yep. What they're natural at, what they want, and what they want to work on, right? Like, so if you're like, I'm never going to write a good one, that may or may not be true. But if you can create a great invite via video and it's easier for you, great.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if you're game for this, but I'm curious for people who are like, I want to literally understand what this invite sounds like and looks like. Could you give me an example, whether it's inviting me, someone else? How exactly do you structure
Yeah.
that? 'Cause I'm curious how long it is, how short it is, how you
Yeah.
started, all of that.
First of all, I love the questions. Now, I want to let everyone know, including you, right? There are literally sample invitations in the back of my book that literally coaches have taken and been like, I know a coach, they were like, we have an invitation, like, I have handouts, right? They took it, they used it, and they wrote to me and they said, I made 40K. I made 40K. I was
Nice.
like, great.
Yeah.
So that's an option. So like, the book has all the handouts in the back. Now, for this, if someone doesn't want to buy the book, which I totally understand, this is what it looks like. So I'd be like, do you want it in writing or video? How would you want it, Greg?
Let's do it, pretend that it's more of a video.
Okay. So I would be like, Greg, we haven't talked in a while, but I do you remember like last year you like wrote to me and shared with me that you wrote about my work in your emails and stuff. Like that was crazy and I still can't get over it. Like I want you to know that. Like it is I don't think anyone's ever done that in quite the way you did and I can't get it out of my mind. So I want to say something to you. I don't do this a lot anymore, right? My practice is not I don't really, I just don't invite very many people anymore. And I want to invite you into a long conversation because I think you're amazing and it's a gift. It's no strings. Like, I just want to give that to you. And it's totally fine to, if you don't want to do it right now, there's no expiration date. I don't care if you write to me 5 years from now and you're like, hey, remember you said you invited me to a conversation? I want to use it now. Great. I'm totally good with that. Or you may never want to use it. And I wanted to gift you time because you were so generous and open about my work.
Amazing. Perfect. I love it. I love it. I mean, now I can really see as I hear that the acknowledgement is so key because it also provides a why. In other words, a why you're reaching out. Because I think someone could naturally say, when they think about this invitation strategy, they could think, well, aren't I conveying that I'm somehow needy or that I have extra space just by making this invitation? Would a fully booked coach make the invitation? By giving a specific acknowledgement, and hopefully it's genuine, people are actually sending invitations for an inspired place. You kind of answer that question for the person. There's this remarkable thing that you did, and that triggered my invite here.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
makes a ton of
And
sense.
it's really important, right? Because like it takes practice to have it feel real, right? Like I mean this is part of the big work, right? I'm like this feels salesy, right? Like a lot of times I'll read them and I'll be like, there's get in here. And sometimes it's not in the words, it's literally in the energy. I'll be like, this feels like you want something. And then the coach will be like, but I do. You
Sure.
want something. And I'm like, of course you do. And we need to talk about that. Right.
Yeah. Pretend you
So,
don't want something for a second.
right,
And then you dig
right, right. As Steve Chandler says, I may need money and I don't need your money.
I like that.
I like it. I think invitations are fun, right? I'm like, wow, who gets to do that? What profession gets to like look out in the world and go, oh, remember that professor I had in college who was amazing? Like, who gets to pick people and say, I want to just gift you time?
Hmm. What are you tracking with coaches or encouraging that people track around their business? Are you tracking these invitations?
Yep.
What are how many things are you tracking and what are you tracking specifically?
Invitations, connections, proposals, conversations.
What's connections?
I mean, connection could be, maybe I went to college with you and we haven't talked in 5 years. And I'm not going to invite you because that's a little rushed, right? But I'm going to write to you and I'm going to be like, Greg, we haven't talked in like 5 years. And, we were in the same fraternity together. And what's up? How you doing? That's a connect.
Got it. Got it. Okay. It's so interesting. I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's exciting me because like I said, I read The Prosperous Coach really early on in my journey. It was a little bit of a pattern interrupt from the online marketing stuff I was learning. And it really helped me say, stop working on your website, stop doing all this avoidance stuff, go talk to people who are going to become clients, just be more direct in your business. that led to a bunch of clients, longer term clients. And then for me, I felt like there wasn't as much leverage for my time with saying, I'm just going to go to the grocery store and invite random people, which is not what you're saying. But sometimes coaches get that idea when they read the Press
Totally.
Course Code. And I was like, it feels tiring. Well, I'm having a lot of long conversations. And I started to lean more onto creating content and marketing that felt like for me, I was getting more out of my time. It's interesting because I've come a little bit full circle now, like a decade into the business, and there really is a power to, in a way, this stuff is so much more high leverage because what you get out of these individual invitations, you might have to send a few to get a call. But compared to having to reach thousands of people through your YouTube video or your content, maybe have one pay attention, I feel like the direct outreach, the referrals, never going out of style. There's such a great strategy to at least add in to what people are doing.
Oh yeah, to at least add it in and it can feel more empowered, right? Because I have agency. It's like I
Mm,
don't have to wait until someone sees my video or likes my email that I sent
yeah.
out today, right? It's like I have agency. I have people that I have been connected to that I can take action and have something happen in the span of a day.
Awesome. Anything else that came to mind or anything else that you want to share?
Just that I do appreciate you a lot, Greg, for the work you're doing and that you share like that one of the things you do, right, is you are willing to share about other coaches and how they do this. And I thought your questions were fabulous. And the thing I want to say to coaches to, in that kind of 5 to 25K range is like, I love this business because we can recreate ourselves, right? It's like who like I didn't know I was going to have a school, right? Like we can really there's so much available to us in this profession, whether that's awesome retreats or much bigger serving like thousands of people in some cool like video series online. And I just want to say to everyone like we're really in an amazing profession that is growing, right? And that I offer to everyone, we don't need to be concerned that more coaches are joining the profession, right? Because each of us has something to offer. Like nobody has the water you have. Nobody, Greg, right? Only Greg has the water Greg has. So there is plenty to go around.
Love it. I think that's a great place to wrap. I wanted to mention your book, The Total Coaching Success Book. Is that the one with the templates? The invite templates? Awesome. And then Coaching Success School, obviously. When does the next cohort of that kick off?
So that kicks off in January, and we are doing. It'd be fun for you, Greg, just to come because I think you'd get a kick out of it, right? So on November 11th, we're doing a all faculty webinar. So Steve will be there. There's like 8 faculty members, and then we just invite all coaches, and then it's 90 minutes, and coaches can be like, I have a question for Steve Chandler, and then Steve is the only one who talks to them. So it's really fun. It's a great way for people who kind of want to go, what is that place? Like, what do they do? We don't talk about the school, right? We serve coaches. It's for any coach. And then if people want to know more, we give them ways to do that after it's done. But it's not a requirement, but it's super fun. It's definitely worth any coach's time. Again, I just appreciate you, Greg. I appreciate like what you're up to, and we need people, good people serving coaches in high integrity, great ways.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you,
Yeah,
Carolyn, for your time.
yeah, it was great.
All
Take
right.
it easy.
Take care.